morning, Acadiana, and thanks for tuning in to Local News Live, a production of AOC Community Media in partnership with the Acadiana Advocate, your source for local journalism here in the Acadiana area. They're covering all of Louisiana, and we are glad to bring you this public service every Monday through Friday between the hours of 9 a.m. and 10 a.m., where we take their written journalism and we read that out for our visually impaired community and our time impaired community and people who just might want to hear the news. We bring you that public service. We could not do it without the generous support and volunteer efforts of our news reading community, people like the wonderful Mr. Bruce Cohen, who is here with us this morning to read the news. Good morning, Bruce.
Well, a good morning to you, Mr. Matt. Glad to be here. Hope everyone is doing well. Hope you're doing well.
I'm doing well. I hope everyone else out there is doing well. I'm going to go join the listening audience and hear you give us the news this morning. Thanks so much, Bruce.
You're welcome, Matt. Appreciate it very much. Well, good morning, Acadiana. It's October 19th, 2020, and we'll start off with some local news. Acadiana High football honors longtime fan. Kenny Bowe died October 11th from virus complications by sports writer and staff writer Kevin Foote. Lots of schools retired jersey numbers. On Friday night, Acadiana High did something a little different. Acadiana High honored one of its biggest fans during Friday's 48-7 win over Southside by retiring seat 23 on row 17 in Section C at Bill Dawson Stadium. It will never be saddened again, said Britt Latchley, is being retired tonight. Kenny Bowe was a familiar face in the seat for decades. On October 11th, the very afternoon his Wrecking Rams beat the state's all-time best football program, John Curtis in New Orleans, Bowe died from complications associated with COVID-19. Sports down to the three boys, younger brother Tony Bowe said. He was in our blood. The brothers all graduated from Eunice High, but Kenny Bowe and his wife, Mary, moved to Scott in 1981. Their two daughters, Stacy and Holly, graduated from Acadiana High in 1988 and 2002, respectively. In the early 1990s, Kenny Bowe and a buddy or a brother would pick out the best high school football game in the area to attend each Friday night. But once Stacy became a freshman at Acadiana High in 1994, Mary Bowe told her husband he needed to start following the Wrecking Rams. They made the playoffs that year, so we started following them, remembered Mary Bowe, who grew up a football fan herself in Norco and the New Orleans area. After that, it was every year. First, they got general admission season tickets while traveling to every road game. Once their daughters graduated, they bought reserved season tickets. The love affair grew stronger each year until the day he died. Kenny Bowe, 68, hung on just long enough to pull his beloved Rams to the 21-13 win over the John Curtis Patriots. With his deep understanding of Louisiana football history, he surely understood the significance of that feat. Mary Bowe brought her husband to the emergency room with COVID-19 symptoms on September 25th, just 9 days after his 96-year-old father, Leon, had died. When I dropped him off in the emergency room, I didn't realize he wasn't going to be coming home, Mary Bowe said, crying. She said her two daughters and her got to see Kenny Bowe the day in the hospital put him on the ventilator. It was like he knew, she said. He said all of his goodbyes. Of course, we didn't believe it because he was quarantined at the time. Kenny Bowe didn't get to attend his father's wake or funeral, but was permitted to visit his father's casket alone after the wake ended. Over the years, Kenny Bowe brought his father to countless Acadiana High games, just like the family's patriarch had done with his three sons, Kenny, Terry, 66, and Tony, 64, for decades. It was a unifying force to Tony Bowe, whose family also included older sister Becky and younger sister Gina. We considered ourselves a team. Daddy and the three boys, the old saying goes. The whole is greater than the sum of its parts. We enjoy the game so much just for the camaraderie, just to the camaraderie of us being together. We laughed at the silliest of things. We just had the best time. Tony Bo remembers a group going to the 1971 Final Four in the Astrodome without tickets in hand. We didn't have enough money for a hotel room, he said, so we drove back after the semifinals and got back about 3 a.m. That's how much sports meant to all of us, this unbridled passion for sports. For about a decade in the 1960s and 70s, Leon Bo would pick his three boys up from school and attend every top 20 boys state basketball tournament game in Alexandria from Monday through Saturday, getting to see such stars as Robert Parrish, Karl Malone, Louis Dunbar, and Howard Carter. We look forward for that every year so much, Tony Bo said. It was unbelievable. It didn't have to be Eunice High or LSU either. If there was a ball game we thought would be of interest, he would take us, whether it was football, basketball, baseball, even track and field, Tony Bo said. The group's final big trip together was 2 years ago to the SEC baseball tournament in Hoover, Alabama. Kenny started planning that trip 9 or 10 months in advance, Tony Bo said. He called the SEC office one day expecting to get a secretary, and the former LSU sports information director, Herb Vincent, answered the phone. Kenny talked to him for 45 minutes. I didn't know if Kenny had ever met her, but he talked to him like he was an old friend. Longtime Acadiana High assistant coach George Harris enjoyed many of those conversations with Kenny Bo over the years. Kenny Bo, oftentimes with his father in the passenger seat, would park near the practice field every day to watch the Rams practice. He was the most omnipresent fan I've ever seen, Harris said. He was the only guy who came to practice every day that had no connection to the program. He was just a football fan, a sport nut, who just kind of wandered over to Acadiana one day and he never left. Former Acadiana High head coach Ted Davidson said he remembers being at a junior varsity game near New Iberia's old Lord G. Porter Stadium one year. It was hot and we were getting eaten up by mosquitoes at this JV game, Davidson said. I looked up and saw Kenny in the stands watching the game. That was just incredible to me. I didn't even want to be there, and I was getting paid to be there. Kenny just loved it. It's kind of unheard of, Harris said. Kenny Bo's attachment to the coaching staff grew when his second cousin, Gary Fontenot, joined the program prior to the state championship runs. When the staff reviewed film each Saturday morning, Kenny Bo would bring donuts. That went on until Ted's wife put a stop to it for the benefit of Ted's health, Harris said with a laugh. Kenny Bo's loyalty to the program wasn't dependent on the team's success, but he especially relished all the trips to the state finals and the 5 state championships. When they went to the state finals for the first time in 2005, he was tickled pink, Mary Bo said. When they went back in 2006, he could just not believe that a team that he was pulling for actually won the state championship. Actually, Kenny Bo got to witness the Eunice Bobcats win 2 state titles and his Rams 5 before that unexpected trip to the hospital. Mary said she knew Kenny Bo had developed many friendships over the years, but really found out once she put her husband's medical update on Facebook. It was an overwhelming amount of support that I got, she said. Some say that every high school football program has a fan like Kenny Bo. Harris disagreed. Every program's got their fans, Harris said, but I don't think everybody's got a guy that when he dies, the coaches feel compelled to honor him in every way they can and bringing their whole team to the funeral. That was just no question we had to do something like that. It's a very nice, enlightening story to start off the news on this Monday, beginning of the week. And let's turn to other locally related news. We're going to talk a little bit because of the elections coming up. We're going to talk about that the story about Megan Wyatt, 3 vie for family court judge. The 3 candidates vying to be one of the family court judges in the 15th Judicial District included the city attorney for Youngsville, partner of a law firm, and a former family court judge. George Knox, Donna Renegar, and Susan Theo will be on the November 3rd ballot for judge at Division M of the 15th JDC. All three are Republican. Charlie Fitzgerald, who has held the seat since January 2015, is running for judge of the 3rd District of the Louisiana Court of Appeals. Fitzgerald is unopposed in that race. District judges serve 6-year terms. The Division M seat has been a family court judge position since the 1990s, although it is not technically classified as such. The Division H seat is also unofficially reserved for family court cases. Judge David Blanchett has held the Division H seat since 2002 and is running unopposed on the November 3rd ballot. Judges for both Divisions M and H hear cases from Lafayette, Acadia, and Vermilion parishes. Only residents who live in each division vote in the races, however. Division M roughly covers Lafayette Parish south of Interstate 10. About 60% of all court cases in the 15th JDC are family cases, according to the candidates vying for the position. Just 2 out of 13 judges in the district court hear family cases, even though they represent the majority of court filings. Divorce proceedings, custody battles, protective orders against domestic violence, and parental rights cases are heard by a family court judge. Here is more information about the candidates for Division M. George Knox. Knox, 55, has served as an attorney in Youngsville for 18 years. After graduating from LSU's law school in 1990, Knox practiced criminal defense, personal injury, insurance defense, successions and wills, and family law cases. He also served on Youngsville's Board of Aldermen from 1995 to 98. His focus as a lawyer has been family law since 1998. Knox's priorities for a family court, if elected, will be handling cases more efficiently so they're resolved faster, petitioning the district for another judge to hear family cases, and expanding on existing programs to have a more holistic approach that addresses underlying problems that oftentimes accompany cases such as substance abuse, domestic abuse, and mental health. I've experienced that ongoing litigation that can be very harmful for kids and the parents, Knox said, and the children don't have an opportunity to heal from all this family conflict until the litigation is concluded and a decision has been made. So my focus is going to be to keep the kid moving and address family matters and family issues in a timely fashion. Knox said the reason he is the best candidate for the position is because he is the only one with children. He also experienced firsthand the family court system after going through a divorce and custody proceedings. I'm the only candidate in the race with children, Knox said. I believe that my legal experience of nearly 30 years, and more importantly, my experience as a parent of 3 boys, just makes me uniquely qualified to be our next family court judge to hear the cases involving children that are going to come before me. Moving on to Donna Renegar. Renegar, 54, is a partner with Veazey, Fielder, and Renegar in Lafayette. After graduating from Tulane University's law school in 1992, Renegar worked as a domestic abuse assistant attorney. She also practiced family law, domestic litigation, and parental litigation, and would later focus on Louisiana workers' compensation and generally casualty cases. Renegar's priorities for family court, if elected, would be putting Acadiana and its children first, not legislating from the bench, and making sure every litigant feels heard before a case is decided, she said. Oftentimes, these litigants are at their worst emotionally, Renegar said. They're enraged, they're grief-stricken, they're horrified, they're angry. It's taken them a long time to get to court. I need to make sure they feel heard by cutting through the emotion and hearing what information these litigants feel I need to know to decide their case. And I know I can do that. I can make them feel heard. I can make sure they feel respected and that they've had a fair day in court. Renegar says she is the best candidate for the position because of her communication skills and desire to get back to the community. I think my communication skills are strong, certainly stronger than my opponents, Renegar said. I believe this has been the experience that other attorneys in town have with me and my clients have with me. believe that this is a call to service for me as my entire legal career has been. And finally, Susan Theall. Theall, 63, is the only candidate who has prior experience as a family court judge. After graduating from Loyola University's Law School in 1985, Theall worked as a law clerk for the state's 27th JDC and worked for a private practice before becoming a board-certified family law specialist. She also served as family court judge of Division M in the 15th JDC from 2011 to 2014. She lost the position against Fitzgerald for the most recent term. Theall's priority for family court, if elected, would be improving the existing Kids First program for parents who have a history of substance abuse, reinstating the self-representative docket, which Theall implemented as a family court judge to allow individuals who can't afford a lawyer to appear in court on the same day, since the cases generally take longer, and using technology to work more efficiently to limit the number of people scheduled to appear in court on any given day. I just want to be able to run family court more efficiently, she said. I want to look at all the programs that are currently in place and see if there's any room for improvement. Theall says she is the best candidate for the position as the only board-certified family law specialist and the only one who has dedicated her career to family law. The very first case I handled was a family court case, Theall said, and that's just where I found my talents lie and where my desire to serve is. In Acadiana, we're all about families. I've got a huge family locally. We have so many people we have to rent a hall to get together for Christmas. I grew up with the idea that family is foremost, and in family court, that's what it's all about. Okay, we're going to look at a couple of PSAs before we move on into the news. Designated on-street early voter parking. Early voting began last Friday, October 16th. On-street reserved parking in downtown Lafayette will be available at no cost for early voters from October 16th through October 27th when early voting ends. Parking meters will be clearly marked with early voted parking only signage in the following areas: West Conference Street between Buchanan Street and Lafayette Street across from the First Baptist School. Lafayette Street between Conference Street and Barry Street across from First Baptist School and in front of the Alexander Mouton House. These designated parking spots are intended for short-term parking for early voters, only who are casting ballots at the Registrar of Voters office at 1010 Lafayette Street. Early voting runs from last Friday, October 16th through Tuesday, October 27th, with the exception of Sunday, October 18th, and Sunday, October 25th. So that was yesterday, the October 18th. And then upcoming Sunday, October 25th, from 8:30 a.m. to 6 p.m. each day. Also, requests for mosquito control now available through Lafayette, 311 Mosquito Prevention and Safety. The LCG of the Lafayette Consolidated Government is increasing mosquito abatement efforts in the parish following Hurricane Laura. An increase in mosquito activity is a common occurrence following the storm event, and citizens noticing an influx of mosquitoes in the area can now use the Lafayette 311 portal to request service. All submitted requests are routed directly to Mosquito Control Services, mosquito control contractor for the parish. And as I mentioned, Hurricane Laura, Hurricane Delta, obviously, now probably presents a mosquito problem as well. Okay, and one more, Healing House is seeking grief support group volunteers. Healing House, Hope for Grieving Children, is looking for volunteers to help grieving children and teens who have experienced the death of a parent, sibling, or special person. Interested volunteers must be at least 21 years of age, available 2 evenings out of each month, and able to attend the scheduled training series. Healing House, Hope for Grieving Children provide grief support groups for children in an atmosphere where they are allowed to express their grief through interactive play, expressive artwork, and discussion groups with peers experiencing the same trauma. All services provided by Healing House are free of charge and run by trained volunteers. Volunteers serve as support group facilitators for children's ages 4 through 17 and are instructed how to listen and respond appropriately to a grieving child. A background or experience in mental health or counseling is not required. The upcoming training session will be held Friday, October 23rd, that's this coming Friday, 2020, from 8:30 a.m. to 3:30 p.m., and Saturday, October 24th, 2020, from 8:30 a.m. to 1:30 p.m. The volunteer application can be found online at healinghouse.org. To learn more about Healing House and the services they provide, call 337-234-0443. That's 234-0443. Or you can email kim@healing-house.org. And again, visit their website, healing-house.org. Okay, we'll go back into our news for the morning. And let's go to see this story here, folks. This is another enlightening story. I like to try to put in some stories that have a brighter side to them than all the other stories about COVID and hurricanes and so forth. It's good to listen to some stories that are truly give you a smile. So a couple gets shocks of their lives. It's Identical Twins by George Moore, staff writer. For Erin Greedo, the ultrasound for the second pregnancy looked familiar and incredibly shocking all at the same time. I immediately saw it, Greedo said. There were two little yolk sacs. The image was familiar because she had seen the same thing 6 years ago before giving birth to identical twin boys, Cooper and Grant. On September 22nd, Greedo gave birth at Women's Hospital in Baton Rouge to her second set of identical twins, Lola, 3 pounds 12 ounces, and Allie, 4 pounds 6 ounces. Dr. Cliff Moore, maternal fetal medicine physician at Women's Hospital, had never seen this before. He estimated it happens in about 111,000 pregnancies. About 8,000 babies are born in Women's Hospital every year, said Caroline Eisman. So that means we only see this about once every 15 years. Unlike 6 years ago, Erin and Jacob Greedo were trying to get pregnant, so they were surprised when it weren't trying to get pregnant. So they were surprised when it happened. I hurried up and found a doctor, and I knew her nurse. Thought I was absolutely crazy because I was like, you don't understand. I need an ultrasound or some blood work or something. She said, I need somebody to tell me this is one baby. When I had my ultrasound, I didn't even know what to say. I texted a picture of the ultrasound to my husband. He said, is that the boys? Nope. Round 2. It was like, oh my God. Obviously, we were excited. We'd done it before, having twins. It's all we know. What they did not know was pregnancy in the time of the coronavirus. In mid-August, everyone in the family contracted COVID-19. Their cases weren't severe, but never they were nerve-wracking. The biggest concern they had was any respiratory issues I might be having, Erin Greedo said. The shortness of breath was probably the most frustrating part of having COVID, because at that point, does that shortness of breath cause concern? So I just stayed in touch with my doctors constantly and kind of experienced how I was feeling. Thankfully, we didn't have any major issues that would have exasperated the situation. We were really blessed. Girls were born 32 weeks and 3 days, premature. That's not uncommon for twins. They have remained in the hospital's neonatal intensive care unit until they can gain more weight and better regulate their body temperature. She's going to take home 2 babies out of this because she's made it far enough along, Moore said. And that's when they will meet their brothers who had a similar NICU journey. Honestly, I'm still in disbelief that we have 4 kids, Erin Greedo said. I don't know that it will actually sink in until we bring the girls home. It's a light story, nice story. Okay, what we're going to do, it's about 9:25, so let's go into our day in history and our horoscope or zodiac for the day and the funerals in the Acadiana area. Today is Monday, October 19th. It's the 293rd day of 2020. There are potentially 73 shopping days left in the air. Today's highlight in history: on October 19th, 1781, British troops under General Lord Cornwallis surrendered at Yorktown, Virginia, as the American Revolution neared its end. On this date in 1765, the Stamp Act Congress meeting in New York adopted a Declaration of Rights and Liberties, which the British Parliament ignored. 1944, the U.S. Navy began accepting black women into WAVES. It's the acronym for Women Accepted for Volunteer Emergency Service. 1960, the Reverend Martin Luther King Jr. was arrested during a sit-down protest at a lunch counter in Atlanta, sent to prison for a parole violation over a traffic offense. King was released after 3 days following an appeal by Robert F. Kennedy. Also on this date in 1977, the supersonic Concorde made its first landing in New York City. In 1987, the stock market crashed as the Dow Jones Industrial Average plunged 508 points, or 22.6% in value, its biggest daily percentage loss. The close at 1,738.74 on what became known as Black Monday. 1994, 22 people were killed as a terrorist bomb shattered a bus in the heart of Tel Aviv's shopping district. In 2001, U.S. Special Forces began operations on the ground in Afghanistan, opening a significant new phase of the assault against the Taliban and Al-Qaeda. 2003, Pope John Paul II beautified Mother Teresa during a ceremony in St. Peter's Square. 1925, I defined Saddam Hussein pleaded innocent to charges of premeditated murder and torture as his trial opened under heavy security in the former headquarters of his Ba'ath Party in Baghdad. And in 2014, Peyton Manning broke Brett Favre's NFL record of 508 career touchdown passes as they threw 4 TD passes in Denver's 42-17 victory over the San Francisco 49ers. The record would later be broken by Drew Brees and Tom Brady. 10 years ago, the Pentagon directed the military to accept openly gay recruits for the first time in the nation's history. 5 years ago, Ahmad Mohammed, the Texas teenager arrested after a homemade clock he brought to school was mistaken for a bomb, capped a worldwide month with a visit to the White House where he met with President Barack Obama for astronomy night. 1 year ago, the Houston Astros advanced to the World Series for the second time in 3 years, defeating the New York Yankees 6-4 in Game 6 of the American League Championship Series. The Astros would lose the World Series to Washington Nationals in 7 games. And the Astros were there again and got beat for the championship, not to go to the World Series, by the Tampa Bay Devil Rays, who will be facing the Los Angeles Dodgers in the World Series starting tomorrow. Today's birthdays: author John le Carre is 89, artist Peter Max is 83, actor Michael Gambon is 80, actor John Lithgow is 75, singer Jeannie C. Riley is 75, rock singer and musician Patrick Simmons from the Doobie Brothers, 72, actor Annie Golden is 69, talk show host Charlie Chase, 68, singer Jennifer Holliday is 60, retired boxer Evander Holyfield is 58, host Ty Pennington, you remember him from the Extreme Makeover Home Edition TV series, he's 56 today. Rock singer and musician Todd Parkmore from Big Head Todd and the Monsters, one of my favorite groups, is 55. Actor John Favreau is 54. Amy Carter, I believe that's I believe that is the daughter of Jimmy Carter. South Park co-creator Trey Parker is 51, and comedian Chris Kattan is 50, and writer-director Jason Reitman is 43. Let's look at the zodiac today of the horoscope. If you're a Libra, swiftly clear up any uncertainty or confusion you face. Know what you are up against, find a way to eliminate whatever is standing in your way, be innovative whenever possible. Scorpio, take a second look at something you want to pursue, find out what's required before you commit to anything, make personal growth and a healthier lifestyle your priorities. Sagittarius, ask questions, verify information, take care of your responsibilities. You can make a change at home as long as you stay within the budget. Think about a sensitive issue before you speak about it. Capricorn, speak, ask for, and put in, consider the best way, ask for input, and consider the best way to bring about change. A positive change will improve your mental, physical, and financial well-being. Aquarius, you are better off observing for now. Tell the truth and keep your promises. If someone lets you down, be ready to take your business elsewhere. Pisces, do what you can to help others. A kind gesture will mean a lot to someone who is experiencing tough times. A joint venture will change your opinion of a long-term acquaintance. Aries, evaluate your relationship with anyone you share costs, responsibilities, or possessions with. Make adjustments to ensure equality prevails. Honesty will help you move forward without hesitation. Taurus, it's a good time to initiate ideas and plans. More courage in beginnings, look for opportunities, and be aggressive in your pursuits. Romance is on the rise. Gemini, handle discussions, dealings with institutions, and relationships with superiors carefully. Expand your mind, take better care of your health, and explore new possibilities. Cancer, be honest with yourself. It will help you see to the changes going on around you. A creative pursuit will ease stress and help you gain perspective. Leo, you'll be confused about the changes someone is making. Don't hesitate to ask questions, but recognize an interference will only make matters worse. And finally, Virgo, my birth sign. Confusion will set in if you are willing, or if you are gullible or too trusting. Be prepared to make a last-minute change if you see that something is wrong or not turning out as promised. Focus on doing what's right. And as always, the horoscope is an entertainment feature not based on scientific fact. The funerals in the Acadiana area today, we have J.B. Cormier, Evangeline Memorial Gardens Chapel in Carrico at 11 a.m., and Robert Vincent at David Funeral Home of Abbeville at 2 p.m. All right, getting back into our news. Company aims to store tons of gases. Lake Charles site eyed for vast underground repository by Mark Schiffelstein, staff writer. And this is more now in the portion of the broadcast we'll be reading about state news. The Lake Charles Company has embarked on an ambitious plan to create a vast repository 10,000 feet beneath the Earth's surface as for the permanent storage of up to 80 million tons of carbon gas now released into the air by Louisiana industrial plants. The repository is actually a permeable layer of rock containing salt water similar to layers that once were drilled in to capture oil and gas in the area located beneath a cattle ranch owned by Gulf Coast Sequestration LLC between the Sabine River and Lake Charles. The company owns both the surface and subsurface rights to the land and plans to create a facility on the property where the carbon gas will be shipped and then pumped underground. The company announced this week that it has begun the process to obtain a permit from the EPA, Environmental Protection Agency, to operate the underground injection well, specially designed for carbon storage. According to recent EPA public meetings, it took a year or more before a permit decision was made. The filing is a long time coming and an exciting moment for CGS. Gary Stream, president of Matilda Stream Management Incorporated, the owner of Gulf Coast Sequestration, said in a news release, We have done our homework, and our permit application reflects our commitment to robust environmental compliance. In August, Governor John Bel Edwards called Louisiana the canary in the coal mine for climate risk because of its increased loss of wetlands due to more intense hurricanes, more frequent Mississippi River flooding, and sea level rise. He launched an ambitious program aimed at reducing the state's greenhouse gas emissions by as much as 28% by 2025. He also set a net zero emissions goal by 2050. Louisiana's total carbon emissions comes from a variety of sources, including car, truck, and ship traffic, oil and gas production at wells, and the use of oil and gas for refineries, electric utilities, and residential heating. Carbon emissions increase temperatures in the atmosphere and the ocean worldwide. The gases cause ocean water molecules to expand and accelerate the melting of ice that adds to ocean water volumes. The 2015 climate agreement aimed to limit global temperature increases is to no more than 34.7 degrees when compared with the average temperature for the pre-industrial period between 1850 and 1900. Today, global temperatures already have increased about 34 degrees from the pre-industrial average recorded between 1880 and 1900, according to the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. In the Lake Charles area, there's a significant number of petrochemical plants, refineries, and electric power plants that might be interested in taking advantage of the sequestration project. That includes liquefied natural gas export facilities that are under construction or recently completed, all which are expected to produce large amounts of carbon emissions. The company says it has no plans to use injection wells to increase the production of oil or gas on its property, a process that has often been used in South Louisiana, Texas, and Mississippi to increase production in marginal wells at the end of their useful lives. Gulf Coast Sequestration says it plans to sequester about 2.7 million tons of carbon gas a year in underground layers capable of holding a total of 80 million tons of carbon on its land. A January report by the Environmental Integrity Group found that another 37 major petrochemical plastics manufacturing projects planned or under construction in Louisiana could add another 63.5 million tons of greenhouse gases a year to the state's total. Going back to some election news, Biden's campaign effort would create green jobs but hurt oil industry by Tyler Bridges, staff writer. Joe Biden is promising more middle class jobs by promoting new green industries in the fight against climate change. That's probably a tough sell to Louisiana workers in the shrinking but still powerful oil and gas industry. The state's energy sector, long dominated by land-based and offshore drilling along the coast, would face tighter anti-pollution regulations, higher taxes, and a ban on new permits for drilling in the Gulf of Mexico if Biden is elected president and follows through on plans to lessen the potentially catastrophic effects of climate change, according to a review of the campaign's energy policies. Any policies that chill investment would cost jobs in such oil-dependent towns as Houma and Lafayette. And while Louisiana's solar and wind industries would receive a push from Biden, oil and gas dwarfs those sectors. The November 3rd election will take place at a time when Louisiana's oil and gas industry has yet to recover from the coronavirus pandemic that shut down the state's economy and caused demand for its products to plummet. The industry remains an important part of the state's economy, but a steady decline over the past 40 years have made Louisiana less reliant on fossil fuels for jobs and tax revenue. Before the coronavirus slammed the state's economy, the industry provided about 19% of the state's economic activity and employed 72,000 people who accounted for 3.6% of the state's jobs, but 6.2% of all wages, according to Gregory Upton, a research professor at LSU's Center for Energy Studies. Now the industry has about 64,000 workers, he estimated. It is clear the energy industry is critical to Louisiana's economy, creating jobs, boosting the economy, and raising the quality of life for residents across the state, said Tyler Gray, president of Louisiana Mid-Continental Oil and Gas and Oil Industry Lobbying Group. Our state's economic future depends on a strong, robust oil and natural gas industry and the safe, responsible delivery of energy resources for all. Louisiana's benchmark oil, West Texas Intermediate, sold for $40.85 per barrel on Wednesday, down from a high in 2019 of $66.24. Louisiana's oil and gas industry has a friend in President Donald Trump. His administration has reversed a number of regulations imposed by President Barack Obama, who said they were needed for cleaner air and water. Trump said they discouraged investment. Beyond any specific decisions, oil and gas officials say the industry has benefited because the Trump administration has included them in the decision-making process. There's been more collaboration to find ways to make things happen instead of regulating and making the resources be stranded, Gray said. The specific Biden policy caused the greatest heartburn among oil and gas officials is this call to ban new oil and gas permitting on public lands and waters on a campaign website of the Biden Plan for a Clean Energy Revolution and Environmental Justice. The webpage doesn't spell out the details, and the Biden campaign did not respond to requests for information. Offshore permitting hasn't become an issue in the presidential campaign, in part because Louisiana's 8 electoral votes are likely to go to Trump. Gray said he was glad to hear U.S. Senator Kamala Harris, Biden's vice presidential running mate, state during her recent debate with Vice President Mike Pence that a Biden administration would not ban fracking, a process used to extract natural gas. That statement is important news for Louisiana given the heavy investment in such natural gas fields such as the Haynesville Shale. Environmentalists prefer to focus on the potential upside of Biden's plans. His efforts to impose stricter rules on the oil and gas industry would give Louisiana cleaner air, water, and soils, said Darrell Malik Wiley, senior organizing representative for the Sierra Club's Environmental Justice and Community Partnership programs. He would require stricter enforcement of abandoned wells, Malik Wiley said, citing one example. We have thousands of those in Louisiana. Meanwhile, the companies that have serviced Louisiana's offshore oil and gas industry might be posed to get work in the country's emerging wind industry, with Edison Cosette Offshore announcing it has been contracted to build a 260-foot vessel to serve as wind farms off the New England coast. The wind industry would require an incredible array of vessels, resources, knowledge, and capital commitment to install, operate, and repair, company president Gary Kuhos said. All right, continuing with Louisiana stories. Louisiana farmers take hit from Trump's trade war, but China's imports are again rising by Tyler Bridges, staff writer. For a time, it looked like President Donald Trump's trade wars would cost him support among Louisiana farmers. China, in particular, has responded to Trump's tariffs on Chinese-made goods by imposing tariffs on 100 billion of agricultural products from the United States, and that caused U.S. exports to plummet. But at least temporarily, China is now buying more of Louisiana's biggest crop, soybeans, compared with the depths of the trade war in 2018, and the Trump administration had given farmers billions of dollars to offset losses from its trade policies and win their favor. Small towns and rural areas throughout Louisiana are expected to power Trump to victory in Louisiana on November 3rd, as they did in 2016. Trump's agricultural policies have paid off, said Jackie Lohr, a rice, soybean, and crawfish farmer outside of Crawley and Acadia Parish. His personality is pretty hard to take, but I do like his policies. One thing Trump doesn't discuss is how the U.S. tariffs amount to a tax increase on U.S. companies and consumers since they have to pay more for Chinese goods. Trump has repeatedly complained during his 2016 campaign that President Barack Obama's administration was allowing China to engage in the greatest theft in the history of the world, as he put it at one point. Once in office, Trump scuttled U.S. participation in the Trans-Pacific Partnership, a 12-country trade pact aimed at countering China's rising dominance in the Far East. He argued that the deal, backed by progressive groups, as well as the U.S. Chamber of Commerce and Manufacturing Lobby, was too complicated and a rape of our country. Trump launched a trade war in 2018 by imposing tariffs on $360 billion of Chinese goods that the United States imported. He predicted that the unilateral move would shrink the U.S. trade deficit with China and lead companies to bring manufacturing jobs back to the United States. China is trying to rebuild their poultry and swine herds, Louisiana Agricultural Commissioner Mike Strain said, noting that most of the soybean purchases will feed chickens and pigs. They're going to buy a lot of products China has got to buy from us. They are the largest importer of food in the world. Soybeans now sell for about $10.50 per bushel. However, Stephen Norman, a pecan owner and grower near Alexandria, had little good to say about the president after China jacked up its tariffs on U.S. pecans from 7% to 47%. China has become a huge consumer of American pecans, but the following fall they imported zero from the U.S., said Norman, who farms 100 acres. Trump's stupid trade war crushed farmers in the United States. Our prices were cut in half. China is buying from other countries. It's not likely we'll get that business back even when the tariffs are removed. We're now trying to market pecans in India, he said. But Norman hastened to add that many pecan farmers will vote for the president this year. There are a lot of Trumpers who believe he can do no wrong, he said. Okay, moving on to other state news. In need of refuge, endangered woodpeckers lost homes in a hurricane by David J. Mitchell, staff writer. When Hurricane Laura's wind and storm surge displaced thousands of people from their homes 2 months ago, the Category 4 storm had also devastated the habitat of the endangered red-cockaded woodpecker, and the full impact may not be known until spring, wildlife biologists say. The family-oriented homebody of a bird, the species has been on a gradual but fragile recovery in some parts of Louisiana, but Laura's march across the state on August 27th destroyed some 17,000 acres of longleaf pine forest where the woodpecker lives, according to industry estimates. High winds knocked down or otherwise destroyed at least 915 cavity trees across a swath of mostly public forest stretching from southern Vernon Parish to the outskirts of Alexandria, early state and federal estimates say. And hollowed out burrows in those trees 20 to 30 feet up, the mother and father birds live with their offspring in close-knit family units. A far smaller and more isolated population at Big Branch Marsh National Wildlife Refuge in Lacombe wasn't harmed by Laura or other recent storms and remains near its maximum capacity, said Barrett Fortier, a senior wildlife biologist for Fish and Wildlife Refuges in southeast Louisiana. U.S. Forest Service wildlife biologists say the agency's 85,500-acre Vernon unit of Kisatchie National Forest was hit hardest, where the woodpeckers had their largest population in Louisiana in combination with the next-door Fort Polk Army base, which runs along the northern border of the Forest Service unit. The Trump administration has proposed reducing the bird's protection from endangered to threatened because numbers have been on the rise in places like Big Branch, thanks to intensive conservation efforts over decades. The proposed status change was announced nearly a month after Laura came ashore. Deep sea Gulf coral gets new federal protections. The protected areas are scattered across 13 reef and canyon sites from Texas to the Florida Keys by Tristan Barwick, staff writer. Federal government has approved new protections of 500 square miles of deep sea coral habitat in the Gulf of Mexico. The protected areas are scattered across 13 reef and canyon sites from Texas to the Florida Keys that support an abundance of sea life, including snapper, grouper, and other fish favored by commercial and recreational fishers. The rules, approved Thursday, October 15th by the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, prohibit fishing with bottom-tending nests and other gear which can rip across corals that have lived for hundreds of years. The environmental group Oceana has pushed for the protection for some 20 years. We've been waiting for a long time for this, said Gib Brogan, an Oceana campaign manager. It's like Christmas in October. Deep sea corals, like their shallow and warm water cousins, are actually colonies of small animals that build a common skeleton. But unlike tropical reef corals, deep sea variables live in cold, dark depths of up to 10,000 feet. Deep sea corals form into tree, feather, and fan shapes that host a variety of other species, including shrimp, crab, and fish. Corals have been found to have antiviral and other disease-fighting properties and are now being tested for cancer treatments. In most of the protected areas, rules will restrict damaging fishing gear, such as trawls, tarps, traps, anchors, and long lines. Trolling and other hook and line fishing will still be allowed because those methods don't normally affect the ocean floor. By protecting these ecosystems, we have shown their commitment to conserving a vital habitat, which will benefit an array of marine life and current and future generations of anglers, commercial fishermen, seafood consumers, and countless others, all who reap benefits from a healthy Gulf of Mexico. The proposal is undergoing environmental review and could be finalized in the coming months. Okay, now we'll head into sports related. UL coach Broadhead flourishing in chaotic year, though through therapy, Cajun coach has straightened his positive perspective by Kevin Foote, staff writer. It's been a long, stressful, sometimes miserable year for so many in the Acadiana area and beyond. And while UL women's basketball coach Gary Broadhead both sympathizes and aids in the play of some of 2020's victims, excuses him if he's walking around town with a big, huge smile, as positive as anyone can be. Some of it is just a mindset these days for Broadhead. As he gets older and wiser, his perspective straightens. I've changed a lot through therapy and a lot of help from UL Sports Information, Josh Bruner, and people around me, and I've become more positive, Broadhead said. I'm not even half full. I'm full. My glass is filled. Broadhead is entering his ninth season as head coach, women's coach. It was his dream job at the time. Only now he's living that dream with different outlook these days. I changed my attitude a few years ago, Broadhead revealed. Going back to the days of repeatedly hearing he was just a high school coach, not ready for the collegiate game, Broadhead took over the program with a huge chip on his shoulder. When I first came in, I was wanting to prove everybody wrong, he admitted. That was my goal, and now I want to prove myself right. That's the thing I'm taking with me. Truthfully, he's only a year removed from having to prove himself again after leading the women to the program's first 4-year winning streak. A few empty recruiting classes left his Cajuns shorthanded to the tune of a 7-23-7 season in 2018-19. And the fact that the fourth season was only 17-16, and some were beginning to wonder. But the Cajuns responded with a 19-12 bounce-back campaign a year ago. The team was headed to the Final Four of the Sun Belt Conference tournament in New Orleans in March when the coronavirus shutdown struck. When something is taken away from you, you always seem to fight harder to get it back, Broadhead said. I think that's where our players were at. Struggles a lot of times make you better, especially young adults, Broadhead said. It's something I'm very proud of these kids fighting back. He also talks of his team's response to the other societal ills plaguing so many during the nightmarish year. I couldn't believe it I couldn't believe it, and to be at home to finish off the conference, Broadhead said. Usually we start off with Arkansas and finish off somewhere else. It's kind of exciting. I like our schedule. It's the first time I really like the conference schedule. That's been a big boost for us. I think our whole staff is really excited. Broadhead's Cajuns are slated to open the season on November 25th against New Orleans before opening Sun Belt play at home against South Alabama on New Year's Eve. Cajuns blank UL Monroe 2-0. From Monroe, Lizzie Mayfield and Una Ennis Dotor teamed up to account for a pair of second-half goals, and the UL Raging Cajuns women's soccer team extended its school record win and shutout streak to 6 matches with a 2-0 victory over the UL Monroe in a Sun Belt Conference match on Sunday. Laura Starwood stopped 5 shots all in the first half as the Cajuns, who are 8-3-0, 4-2-0 in the Sun Belt Conference, swept the season series against the Warhawks, who are 0-7-0-6, and extended their streak of not allowing a goal to a school record 602 minutes. Mayfield, who had a goal and assist in the same game for the 4th time this season, broke and opened a scoreless battle in the 50th minute after taking a pass from Nanas Dotor and scoring past ULM goalkeeper Haley Hillcock for her team high 5th goal of the season. The duo would team up again 8 minutes later when she scored past Hillcock late on the 58th minute for the 4th goal of the year. That would be more than enough for Starwood to improve to 6-1-0 and lowered her goals against average to 0.15. And we're at the 9:56 mark, which means that the audio is cut off in our TV stations, but we are continuing on our Cypress Street Radio, which is our online streaming radio service. Just go to your browser, plug in the Cypress Street Radio and click the play button, or go to our YouTube station, AOC Community Media, to hear this last story about the Saints. A problem, not a coincidence. Saints defense league worst in red zone situations by Luke Johnson, staff writer. The Saints were reeling. The Los Angeles Chargers and rookie quarterback Justin Herbert putting them on their heels defensively. They had a chance to salvage a bit of momentum. The Chargers were facing a 3rd and goal from a 3-yard line in the second quarter Monday night. A stop was essentially worth 4 points, as the Chargers would have likely settled for a chip shot field goal, and a 4-point swing would have felt huge in a game the Saints were already trailing 13-3. Instead, this happened. Herbert dropped back. I'm saying Herbert because I don't think he's Cajun, but Herbert dropped back in a clean pocket and was never pressured. The Saints blanketed every option except one, Demario Davis. Locked in man coverage against tight end Hunter Henry, fell a step behind Henry, broke his out route toward the boundary. Herbert whizzed the ball high and toward the sideline where diving Davis could not touch it. That was Herbert's first pass attempt of the game inside the Saints' 20-yard line, and his 3rd touchdown pass of the game in the red zone. And perhaps the most troubling, it marked a continuation of what has been a season-long trend for the Saints defense. I think we're far enough in now where it's not a coincidence. The numbers aren't a coincidence, Saints coach Sean Payton said. Through 5 games, the Saints have been almost comically bad at keeping opposing offenses out of the end zone once they get inside the 20-yard line, allowing touchdowns at a staggering 85% rate in the red zone. Particularly, that's the worst mark in the NFL. It's nearly 50 percentage points worse than the Bears' league-leading red zone defense, which is 36.8%. When asked what has been the biggest issue in such situations, defensive end Cam Jordan just said, all of it. His defensive line mate gave a more thorough breakdown of where things have broken down with defensive tackle Sheldon Rankins thinks about his team's situational failures through 5 games, he boils it all down to consistency. We've had times as a defense in past years we've been really stout in the red zone and been able to keep teams out. Rankin said, we'll play really great on one play, really great on the next play, and then something happens. Whether it's a lack of communication or just one situation or confusion or whatever it may be, but we give up big plays. And the thing about giving up big plays in the red zone, they're usually touchdowns. So you give up a big play in the middle of the field, stop a guy, and still have, 30, 40 yards of field to kind of defend it. You give up a big play in the red zone, and it's usually 6 points. The greatest struggles have come in goal-to-go situations. The Saints are one of 4 NFL teams who have allowed opponents to score in 100% of those situations. Opponents have converted half of their 12 third down opportunities inside the red zone, but not great, but below the league average, 55.1% on all third down plays. The problem is the Saints have also allowed opponents to go for 4 for 4 on fourth down in the red zone. Opposing quarterbacks are 9 for 12 with 6 touchdowns on either third or fourth down in the red zone against New Orleans. If you can get off the field there, they're kicking a field goal, Peyton said. The issue is they haven't forced many field goals. Well, there's still a bit of season left, so hopefully they'll keep on trying. So it's now 10:01. We usually go from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. Monday through Friday. Friday, we read the online news provided to us by our wonderful friends and collaborators of the Acadiana Advocate. We appreciate their support and allowing us to read the news to our visually impaired audience in our community, and for those who don't get the newspaper or have access to the news cycle. We do this every Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. with volunteer readers like myself. And in the past 6.5, 7 months, it's been from my home studio. If you're interested in becoming a newspaper reader, volunteer newspaper reader, just go to our website, aocinc.org, look at the volunteer page, bring the tab down, fill out the form to become a volunteer newspaper reader and join our wonderful family of readers. So this has been Bruce Cohen, will always be Bruce Cohen. I want you to stay healthy and safe and smart out there. Continue to stop the spread by wearing your mask and doing everything that we need you to do and make sure we get through the pandemic. And as always, be kind to each other and have a great morning. We'll see you on the flip-flop.